Hello team and welcome back to the studio. We are here to talk about 23.3. You are about to watch myself, Liam, Karan and Andrew take on this workout, and joining me in the studio today is Lottie.
Hello.
Lottie is also doing this workout. You're going to see her every now and then drift through the background.
In the background.
And we have an interesting workout today. I think initial thoughts are no dumbbells.
No dumbbells.
So, I mean, it's on the required equipment list, but we didn't see it this year. What does that mean for next year? We also see a heavy load. That means we had a max strength test and we had a fatigue-based strength test, which is very cool. 2 in the open. We have high complexity. This is one of those workouts we often see in the CrossFit Open on that final week, which is kind of like, if you're not good enough, then do the scaled. It's kind of what they're saying. And we have a new standard on the handstand push-up. I don't know if this is going to be standard that's going to stick around. It might just be the fact that the wall walks make it a little bit problematic because you're going to have that line there already. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. Other than that, Lottie, any thoughts from you having done the workout this morning?
Not too much other than what you've covered. No. Yeah, quite a high complexity workout. I think this Open's been quite a tough one this year. You know, we usually see a very inclusive Open, and it is inclusive, but it drops people. It separates that leaderboard quite quickly.
Yeah. Talking about top 10% cut lines, I have a feeling that we're probably going to be seeing any females who are getting kind of between 12 to 15 reps through the handstand push-ups. I think that's going to be enough to secure in the top 10%. And I do think that men, you're going to be having to hit probably one snatch at the third weight if you want to be making top 10%. And that's just initial estimations. We'll obviously see how that all unfolds. Okay, now, in this workout, you're going to see 4 very different athletes. Unfortunately, we have no athletes who are excelling past the third barbell here, but from a strategic standpoint, I think your strategy, if you're moving to that last barbell, is going to be much the same as what you do for the third barbell. So you're going to see Andrew and Karan. I just want to quickly talk about each athlete because I want you guys who are watching to kind of fit yourself into one of these buckets. Avatar 1, which is going to be someone like a Karan, is someone whose goal is to get as far as they can in that 6 minutes without the intention of probably moving past it. So your goal is that every single repetition in that first 6 minutes is going to count. Avatar 2, which is going to be Andrew in the grey shirt, is someone who can potentially get through that 6 minutes and make it to the second part of this workout. So you're confident that you can do it, but it's not going to be easy. It's going to be touch and go around that 6 minute mark. The third avatar, this is going to be someone, which is myself, is someone who can comfortably get through that first 6 minutes, but your limiter in the second part is going to be your strict handstand push-ups. And then the fourth avatar, which we don't really have an example of, unfortunately, today, is going to be someone like me who can comfortably get through the 6 minutes, but your limiter is going to be that snatch weight. So it won't be your strict handstand push-ups.
Third bar.
Yeah. And there will be a fifth avatar, which is you don't have any limiters in terms of movements. And this is just going to be about smart, effective pacing and not hitting any no reps. Remember, the 6 minute cutoff, if you do progress and complete all your work before that 6 minutes, you simply move into the second phase. So it pays to complete that first bit faster from a time perspective. But this is just one of those tricky games where you could potentially sneak some time to help you in the second part, but you've also got to manage fatigue. So there's no point in getting the second part and being really fatigued, not being able to hit any repetitions. Anything to add there, Lottie, before we get into this?
Nope.
Okay, so 3, 2, 1, and we are underway. Okay, so I think we're just going to commentate as we go through this. We're talking about the wall walks to start. In terms of standard, there's nothing new in the standard. Just don't do what Lottie did and put your hands on the male line, guys. Remember,
know your lines, guys.
Always make sure you read the rules before you start. So in terms of technique and the wall walk, you know, we're looking to get to that line in technically as fewer steps as possible. Yep. This is hopefully something you've been practicing throughout the year. So nice, efficient cadence. No repetitions. That's super key on the wall walk. In terms of the cost per rep in a wall walk, it's really high.
Yeah, we don't want to spending too much time at the top of each rep as well.
There's lots of time under tension. Yeah. There's lots of energy that goes into each rep. So if you essentially take yourself through a whole repetition and don't get credited with the rep, which we saw happen quite a lot, that's just a lot of wasted time and a lot of wasted effort.
Yeah.
And especially if you're in Avatar 1, Avatar 2, where every rep in that 6 minutes is super important, you cannot afford to have a no rep. So let's talk about our double unders here. So myself, I went 50 unbroken. I
Same.
believe you did as well.
Yep.
It's a fairly comfortable movement for me. Now, when we look at Andrew and Karan, both of these guys are a little bit newer to CrossFit, and I would say that the double under is not really a comfortable movement for them. So we're seeing that, Andrew is jumping really, really high. Karan is having a bit of a pike with his rep, but Karan was actually able to move through his 50 repetitions unbroken there.
Yeah. I think also it's important to say with the double unders here, whether you take a single under first or go straight into that first repetition, like kind of know where you are. Don't try something new in the competition. If you know where you are in the avatar list, if something double under is a comfortable movement for you, you can go straight into that first rep. That's split seconds that allows you to move to that bar an extra bit faster.
I want to quickly talk about these snatches because we've seen some very different techniques. We're all cycling the barbell in different ways. I'm actually performing a no contact power snatch here. For me, that's just because I want to save my legs. The aggressive hip extension really fatigues me, and I'd much rather use my lower back and my hamstrings. That's why I'm using that technique. Everyone else is using a hip contact. Now, what we're seeing with Karan is actually pausing at the hip on the way down. That's just extra time and attention that can create some fatigue. Whereas you watch Andrew and Liam, they're back to the hip and then they're going straight down to the floor. Yep. That's probably the technique we're going to adopt. Now, again, whether you're going to use what I use, which is going to be a little bit faster, but a little bit more fatigue in your back, that's just going to come down to you as an individual where you feel comfortable.
And you were doing sets of 5.
And I did 3 sets of 5. Yep. I think if you're someone who is just trying to get as many reps as you can in this first part of the 6 minutes, I would advise breaking your repetitions up more. The key is you want to be able to perform at that second barbell. That's the key. So it doesn't pay to get to the second barbell fast and then not be able to do a repetition, although there is a tie break. But really, if you know you can hit that second weight, slow down that first bit a little bit so that you're a little bit fresher to hit that second bar.
It's very easy to get comfortable with if that bar's like a relatively okay weight for you. Do big sets, it's easy to get carried away with that, whereas breaking into smaller sets from the start.
So we're comparing all 4 athletes here. I'm kind of actually just moving into lead now, moving into the double unders. I did feel a little bit of fatigue moving back into walks, but I feel that was breathing more than anything else. I was able to, again, go through 50 double unders here. For me, like I know I can snatch 235 pounds many moons ago, so I knew that the 135-pound barbell was going to be fairly comfortable for me, so I knew I could actually push this, and actually, even though I was breathing hard, there was never any doubt that I wasn't going to make it through these repetitions. You'll also notice we're all wearing t-shirts, which again is quite rare for process programming coaches, and the reason for this is on wall walks, if you are topless, although you are topless, Lottie,
I was,
but you're not that much, if you're not a very sweaty person, but just wetting the floor could be a little bit slippery if you're doing your wall walks, so maybe
especially
keeping a t-shirt on. Exactly. So I think, for athletes here, we're going to see Karan. I know Karan had felt like he kind of got into his own head a little bit, and at this point in the workout, he kind of checked out. He's already thinking about his reader. You can see all sorts of mistakes happening here. He's dropping the rope. He's a bit slow moving to his double unders. Andrew's consistently hitting through it.
Notice where the athletes set up their rope to begin as well. It's smooth transition in there for Andrew, whereas Karan kind of maybe got in his own head and he wasted that extra time getting into those double unders.
Also, you'll notice why I've tucked my t-shirt in. That's also to stop it suffocating me when I go through a wall walk or a handstand push-up. So we're now going into the snatches. I think most athletes, even watching Danielle Brandon and the pros take on this workout, Mal O'Brien did do some touch and goes, but fast singles is going to be an option for pretty much all of us. As to how fast, that's really going to be dictated by how heavy that load is relative to your 1 rep max. Just something to think about is stay close to the barbell. Don't be walking away from it. I do take a couple of steps here and there. I know Liam was frustrated at him walking away from that bar quite a bit. But in terms of technique used now, we're probably going to be wanting to use that hip for most of us now. Yep. So if you were using a no contact or a muscle snatch in the first bar, definitely bringing the hip into it and getting as much work or contribution from the legs as possible. So I've now moved on, finished the first 6 minutes, the first part of the workout in about 4:49. I knew I needed to push that because strict handstand push-ups are a limiter for me. You'll see that I'm using mats here. Mats are a wise decision unless you like to bounce your head off the floor, which I really don't. I also have a very pointy head, so that's quite painful.
Pogo.
So yeah, get your mats out, make sure you've measured your line on the mat. Now let's just talk about the line quickly. So I know, Lottie, you didn't get to the handstand push-ups, but the line is going to, basically the only standard is that your fingers must be touching the line, and really you have 2 options here. You can go for width, And if you want to get more width, so you're someone who likes to press between the hands more, but you like to take the hands wider, then going for a thumbs on the end of the tape would be a wise decision. For me, I didn't really want to go wider. I used to setting away from the wall quite far. So instead of going width, I went fingers, index fingers, as close to the corners as possible. And that allowed me to pull away from the wall, but not get as wide. So that's just something you just got to practice in your warm-ups and just find what feels most comfortable. And essentially what we're trying to do is replicate the position that we most often use.
And how did it feel for you going through them?
I definitely, you know, I'm a weak handstand push-upper relative, I think, to a lot of my other movements in the sport. And I know that I'm someone who likes to rely on basically arching my back a lot and kind of pressing through my upper chest. And because of the standard being much closer to the wall, the 10-inch line meant that you cannot really do that.
Yeah.
So you're having to stay a lot more vertical, and that definitely made them even more challenging for me. But it's good. It's, you know, it's just something that I'm going to have to now work on in my training. If you're also looking at me and thinking Ed looks a little bit lopsided, I am super lopsided. I am a very asymmetrical person because of many, many injuries and all sorts of weird things that happen to my body. So please don't judge me. So I just want to talk about Liam here. So Liam is generally, I would say, a better strict handstand push-upper than me. But it was the fatigue, the aerobic fatigue, the breathing that was limiting here. So Liam, he achieved 10 strict handstand push-ups in this time, but he was just doing singles throughout. I think looking at Liam's hands, he's quite narrow.
Very narrow.
You'll see his elbows are actually flaring out beyond his hands. So I think Liam probably could have done with opting for the thumb variation and taking his hands a little bit wider. Again, going to Andrew. Andrew is a really good strict handstand pusher.
Very confident, yeah.
You know, he can hit 30 probably unbroken repetitions. But for him, again, it was just the fatigue from the first part. The breathing meant that he actually broke down quite quickly in handstand push-ups. So, you know, if you are a good strict handstand push-upper, don't think that that's going to make this workout easy. You need to be aerobically proficient or aerobically developed if you're going to be proficient here as well. Okay, so this is really, as to how fast you progress through this bit, is going to be really dependent on your ability. So we had someone like Skulk who got through the 6 minutes slower than I did, but he's a very proficient handstand push-upper. So he was actually able to do 10 unbroken reps, short rest, 5 unbroken reps, short rest, 5 unbroken reps. And that gave him a lot more time to then move to the 185 barbell, which was what his target was. His limiter was going to be the snatch limiter.
And he got it.
And he got a repetition. Well done, Skulk. So if I talk about myself here, I knew this was going to be really hard, and I was really stoked to actually get through the strict handstand push-ups. So I think I did sets of 3, then sets of 2, then I did, I think the last 7 or 8 repetitions, I was just going to singles, but I just made sure that I didn't do any no repetitions. I wanted to make sure that I made sure I nailed every single rep.
Bounce as much as possible.
Yeah, so now moving to the 185-pound barbell, I know I can comfortably hit a 185-pound barbell, but just the amount of fatigue and how hard handstand push-ups were for me meant that I really had not much in my shoulders at this point. I think I finished these double unders, and I have about 10 seconds to go, or just enough time. I tried to basically sneak as much rest as I could before I had an attempt at it. So I kind of just mess around a little bit. You can see the clock at 47 here. So I just try to get myself fired up. The bar actually felt really good off the floor, but as I got overhead, I just had no juice in my shoulders. So a bit disappointed I didn't hit that, and that was the only time I had. And I do think that hitting one snatch at 185 would be a really big separator on that leaderboard. Okay, so there you have it, folks. 4 very different avatars. As I said, if you're someone who would progress through that third barbell, then really like your strategy doesn't really change. If you're someone who can actually hit that last weight, then it's about just being smart on the third weight, saving energy so that you can execute that last bell as much as you can. Of course, if you're elite, then this is really just about not doing any no repetitions, smooth and steady throughout this entire workout, and making sure you can execute those heavy barbells. Because every rep at those heavier barbells, especially weights 2, 3, and 4, are going to be really big separators on that leaderboard.
Yep.
I just think final things, you know, no reps on any of these movements today. That's super, super key. Obviously, a triple and a double under is something sometimes we can't control. Handstand push-ups, play with that standard before. Try and find something that works best for you. Know your lines. Read the rules. Read the standards. If you're someone who uses the mat for handstand push-ups, make sure that is measured out with a line on it and have that ready to rock and roll so your judge can slide it in when you go. Remember, you can set up multiple barbells. So we actually had 2 barbells set up. Barbell 1, barbell 2, and then when the athletes were moving through the handstand push-ups, we just put those two weights together to make.
Yeah, and if you don't have, access to 2 bars, you can actually have people to help you change those plates, so you're not actually wasting time as you go through that.
Judges are permitted to actually help you here. Last little reminders, as Lottie said, read the standards, read the rules, make sure you're super clued up on that. It's your responsibility, not your judges. Make sure your phone has adequate battery. Make sure your phone has adequate memory. Have your WOD-proof app if you're someone who's going to be using, or a similar timer. Have that all ready, rock and roll before. In terms of warming up for this workout, we're going to provide that to our community, the process programming. But just remember, if you're doing this in something like heats, where you're in a part of a big group, a big gym atmosphere, it might be a tricky one, because you're going to have to forecast who the most proficient athlete is going to be in the heat before, and try and work out roughly how long you're going to be. Because for some of you, you could be on 6 minutes after. Some of you could be on 12 minutes after. So have a look at the people in front of you, and then kind of work your way backwards from that. Make sure you're not warming up too early or warming up too late. Lottie, any last thoughts from you?
I think you've covered it all.
Thank you for joining me on the show.
Yep.
Much appreciated.
Good
luck,
luck,
everyone. Crush it.